light without a face. The night the light arrived, the house remembered its own silence. Elena hadn't believed in inheritances that came with instructions, but the brass key and a single line of handwriting, "Come upstairs if you must," had a way of tugging. The house smelled of dust and old lemon polish. Floorboards sighed like people waking. She climbed, not toward revelation, but toward the small, topmost room where a pale glow pooled across the threshold and seemed to wait with patient attention. At first, the glow felt like a trick of paint, a lamp left on, a window catching streetlight. Then she noticed details the house kept secret, clocks that lagged by the same minute each morning, a photograph frame whose face had been smoothed away as if rubbed by someone in a hurry. A neighbor called from across the street with a polite, tremulous warning. "People leave this house," she said, "but sometimes they take less of themselves than they came with." Elena laughed when she hung up, but her laughter clung thinly to the air. The attic door resisted with a dry rattle. Inside, the light sat like a held breath, not from a bulb, but as if the dark had been thinned. A mirror leaned against an exposed beam, its glass dulled and flecked. When Elena lifted her hand to its surface, there was suddenly a tiny, wrong space where her fingers should reflect. It was as if the glass had decided certain things were optional. She backed away, breath tight, and when she glanced again, the gap was tissue thin, barely a memory. The house swallowed her thought. On a small table beneath the mirror lay a bundle of letters tied with twine. The handwriting was so deliberate it read like a promise. "I thought I could look and keep looking." Each page read like someone trying to negotiate with the room. No names, no dates, only sentences about forgetting and small apologies to empty chairs. One note ended, "I left a piece of myself on the ridge of the roof." Another page had been deliberately torn, the missing corner soft with oil. The letters made the house less foreign and more conspiratorial. Some nights, the house gave Elena back a kind world, a kettle singing, a window full of stars. She would tell herself that was the end of it, that the glow was a quirk, something explainable. Work at the archive was solid, material names, dates, orderly rows of boxes that refused to be ambiguous. These hours of normalcy were like breath between waves, and for a while they steadied her. But normal is a thin thing in a house that remembers differently than you do. And the light attended the margins of her days, patient as tide. Electronics misbehaved near the attic. Her phone's camera would render the light as a smear and then refuse to save images. A voice recorder collected nothing but a hiss, though Elena was certain she had spoken aloud. She learned to test the boundary. Hold a silver coin under the glow. Watch the edges go soft. Her reflection in polished cutlery missed tooth, and I now and then, like a film burned in bands. Each failed recording felt like a small theft, but more unsettling was the way the house seemed to watch what she tried to remember. Lucas arrived on a Sunday with a thermos and a skeptical smile, a camera slung over his shoulder like a talisman against nonsense. He laughed at the attic light until he stepped under it and looked at his own reflection in the mirror, the man catching himself half a second too late, mouth moving while the glass stayed still. The laugh left him the way a curtain shutters a window. He didn't say the thing Elena feared most. Instead, his camera, for the first time, refused to take a picture. He left with his jaw tight and a promise to return. Dreams came like drafts through the house. In sleep, Elena visited tables set for strangers who left no footsteps, faces lined on chairs that dissolved when she blinked. The light did not appear as a thing in those rooms so much as a rule. You were allowed to see, but only in pieces. Waking was a small ritual of reassembly. Check the windows, run fingers along the banister, recite names to make sure they still fit. Names were anchors, she told herself, and yet some woke with edges softened like fabric hung in rain. The presence began to answer in tiny, nonverbal ways. A note rearranged on the table, a chair pulled an inch closer to a window, a scent of lemon where no cleaner had been used. Once it shifted the letters so that a sentence read in a new order. Look and lose is not the same as close and keep. Elena tried dialogue, loud questions, the muttering of names, even reading aloud entire passages from her notebook. The attic would listen and breathe, and sometimes the light dimmed, as if considering its response. It learned her cadence. One evening, she climbed the stairs with the brass key cold in her palm and a determination that felt like a borrowed coat. She stood before the mirror and spoke the one question that had nested under everything else. What do you want? The light flared in an answer that was not sound but memory, folding into the glass like a hand smoothing paper. Elena saw herself reflected, but without the features she'd learned to know. The soft scar by her brow, the tiny crescent of a smile. Her name sounded foreign in her mouth. The attic watched the wobble of her certainty. She understood, in a way that skipped the logic of words, that the house had a way of becoming seen by borrowing what made people distinct. It was not ugly in its taking, rather clinical, like cataloging, but its result was quiet erasure. Lucas's absence after his last visit, how he had smiled without recognition at the photograph of himself on her mantel, added weight. Elena began to answer back by naming memories aloud, detailing minutiae, a childhood alley, a scar from a bicycle fall, hoping the specificity would anchor her where the light could not remove what was named. At the edge of dawn, she tried a different approach. Instead of resisting, she offered. She placed the letters in a neat pile, left the mirror propped open, and with a calm she surprised herself by finding, said, "I have these. Keep words, not faces." For a while, the attic light quieted, as though reading the bargain, and the house settled into a hush that felt like truce. But bargains in rooms that remember are slippery. There are clauses that unfurl later, and the light kept its patient attention, learning to ask more refined things. Weeks passed with half-lives of certainty. Sometimes she would catch herself in a reflection and feel whole. Sometimes she would pass a window and not recognize the woman moving the way she had always moved. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday, Lucas did not return a call. His camera remained on the kitchen counter with a single image corrupted beyond repair, a bright oval of light in which nothing resembled a face. Elena stood at the sink and named him until the syllables felt solid again. The house listened. The attic light tilted like a head without features, and for a moment, thin and terrible, Elena thought it smiled with a memory it did not own.